G'day. Welcome to Brewers Live, proudly brought to you by Bespoke Brewing Co. Cheers. Thanks for everyone for joining in. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Don't forget to send in your best questions today. Don't forget you'll get a merch pack there. And at the end of the day, you'll also go in the draw to win a great Bespoke beer experience as well. Something certainly worth chucking a question in. Just going to head again into our little lids here and just remind everyone that unfortunately we can't get our lids anymore. So that's why we've had to change our lids on our cans. You'll notice I've still got Sprocket canned 2 days ago with one of these 360-degree lids. So we're running with Sprocket until we run out of these lids. We feel that that beer's really, really supports this type of lid design, and you really get those aromas and flavours coming out of the can. Also, our lids are now illegal in New South Wales from May 21, so we're looking at trying to develop our own lid, and stay tuned on that. Hopefully that will be slightly different to the one we've been forced to use now. But let's get into what we're here tonight all about, and that is big welcome to Jane from Two Birds Brewing. G'day, Jane.
All right.
We're going to talk all things Two Birds tonight, and Jane, Two Birds has now been going since 2009, coming into their 10th year. Is that right, Jane?
Just had 9th birthday, so yeah, coming in for 10 now.
That's a pretty big milestone.
It is, yes.
And so how did you get into beer?
How did I get into beer? So I was a winemaker to start out with. So I used to be involved in that circle. I used to live in Margaret River, and I was really keen to move back to the city. My now husband, then partner, was living in the city. So I was looking at roles that I could do that were going to be based in that area, and Brewers came up as somewhere that had a brewer role going, and I was like, okay, cool, I can see some kind of similarities here. Got some similar skills to making wine. If they're both booze, you just get their sugar from different places. So I remembered a couple of years prior to that, I was sitting at Little Creatures drinking beer, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to work here. I'm totally going to do this. I'm going to give this a shot. So they had a role that came up. I applied, and this is back in the days when job ads used to be in the newspaper. Showing my age. Applied for the role, got that, and then really never looked back. For me, the role came really before my love of beer. I got the job first, and then developed the passion for beer really after I got into the role. It was just a job for me when I started out, but it's way more than that these days.
So that obviously led into you and your good friend Danielle starting up your own brewery.
Yes.
And how did that happen? Was that something that happened by accident, or that was always going to be the plan?
I had never ever wanted to own my own business. I always thought that was a terrible idea, and I had always thought I just didn't need that stress in my life. I had been working at Mountain Goat at the time, so I'd moved from WA to Melbourne, and I was head brewer at Mountain Goat. And I really just wanted to be more involved in the whole process. I got to the stage where I was pretty comfortable doing my part of the role, and I really just wanted to be across everything. I wanted to be across the labels, and I wanted to be across the kind of direction, and I guess I realised that there was only so far that I could go with that in someone else's company. So really the only way I could scratch that itch, I guess, was to actually go out on my own. So I probably decided about a year prior to Danny and I having conversations. So we went to the US together when my husband and I got married. And yeah, we're just in pubs. We're actually in a little brew pub in San Luis Obispo, and we were just sitting there, and Danny had kind of like a paddle in front of her, and she sort of, it finally all kind of clicked into gear, and she was like, okay, cool, I totally understand what you're trying to do now, and yeah, I think we should totally do that together. So what started out as a drunken conversation, which I think is how all the best businesses start, ended up in writing business plans, sort of doing a lot of research around what we thought that might look like. And then, so that was August 2008, I guess. No, 2010. And then it was May the following year that we left our jobs and started the company.
Yeah, awesome. And the landscape back then in craft beer in Australia was very different to what it is now. I think, if I remember rightly, back then there was probably lucky if there was 300 small breweries. Do you remember thinking to yourself back then that there weren't that many other breweries around, and that you're obviously one of the, I guess, even in 2009, one of the pioneers, I suppose, of modern craft beer in Australia.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was like back then?
Yeah, I really do. I remember it really clearly, and I actually said to Danny at one point, I was just like, have we missed this already? Like, it feels like there are so many breweries, because of course I'd been in it similar to you, right? I started brewing 16 years ago, so I saw all of that kind of growth. So that when there were 250 or 300 breweries, I was like, we've missed this. This whole thing is gone. The wave is past us, and we're just late to get onto it. Which of course in hindsight is ridiculous and hilarious. But I remember having conversations with her. I was like, man, I'm worried that we've waited too long to get on this. So obviously I'm glad that we did it when we did. But yeah, it's a totally different industry now.
It's very hard starting up, I reckon, a brewery now, especially with 650 breweries now in Australia. It'd be, it's whilst our market's growing pretty well, whether it can support that many breweries is yet to be seen. We've seen a few, unfortunately, go by the wayside through COVID. How has COVID affected Two Birds?
Well, look, so we're about 50% keg. So come whatever it was, March the 23rd, we lost half of our business overnight. And we had a fair few kegs in stock as well. So there was a bit of stock that we had to kind of end up disposing of. And yeah, obviously we lost our own tap room as well. But it's, in the end, it's been up being good for us. I mean, obviously, when I say in the end, I'm in Victoria, so it's far from over here. We're still right in the middle of it. I live in a suburb that is 3 suburbs around me are all in lockdown, and I'm not. So, but yeah, it's still very kind of front of mind here, because effectively we're back to lockdowns with certain venues not being able to open again. But in the end, I think it's actually made us a better business. We spent a lot of time really working on the internals, really understanding, not that we didn't already, but getting so incredibly intimate with every part of the operation of our business. And so I feel really good going forward. I feel really across it, and I feel like we used the time well, to do what we needed to do to come out strong on the other side of it. So it's been a blessing, I guess, in disguise for us a little bit, in that, yeah, it's given us more time without running at, breakneck speed that you're always running at as a business owner. It's given us a bit more time to stop, reflect, and make some really good, strong choices for coming out of it.
And you always had a tap room as well, and so you're able to leverage that a little bit and do takeaway sales, and that seemed to work. That seemed to have worked pretty well.
Really good. And the takeaway sale was really interesting. So yeah, we had a little drive-through situation, little lemonade stand thing going on, or a beer stand as we were calling it. But it was great for the community. So they all came out, and we were doing a decent quantity of beer through there. But I think probably my favourite part of it was how much all of our staff loved it. Like, just loved having interaction with our locals, and just all of them felt so much better. They'd all come in the next day and be like, oh my God, I love the drive-through. It's so much fun and everyone's so nice, and just being able to chat to people and see how everyone was going. So, yeah, the drive-through had unexpected positive outcomes there.
Yeah, much similar stories from us as well. Canberra really sort of supported us through the time when we couldn't open the pub at all, and we used to sell quite a bit of, certainly our travellers as well. We had 28 beers on tap, so people were coming in to fill up their traveller, and putting new beers out was certainly something that we did. Tried to put out a new beer every week, actually. I think we did that for about 6 weeks in a row, so that was pretty good.
My God, you are unstoppable, Rich.
Well, actually, Tracy did all that.
Well, she is even more unstoppable than you are.
I guess, COVID aside, there's always lots of challenges running your own business, and there's probably maybe a few people listening who are looking at either setting up a brewery or just started. What advice do you want to give people about running your own business and running a brewing company?
Yeah. Look, have lots of money. That's probably my first one. Look, I guess probably I'm going to come at it from the challenges side of things. I think personally the thing I find most challenging about what I do, I guess, is that, I don't know, a lot of people might start a brewery or a brewing company because they are brewers and they're good at making beer. But I think what rapidly becomes clear is that when you own a business, for the most part, you end up running the business and potentially doing the things that you aren't necessarily as skilled at, as good at, or as prepared for. So I guess probably understand where your skills lie and how to use those. Because I guess for me, I ended up being less of a brewer and more of a human resources manager. Like, I ended up managing teams and staff and looking after the well-being of these people. So I think if you're getting into business to be the brewer in that part of it, make sure that you have someone else who can look after the other side of it, and that you're willing to pay for that, for what that looks like. So that would be my one thing. I think probably anyone in the brewing industry who's spoken to me over the last however long would be like, what's your biggest headache right now? And it would always be staff. And if any of my staff are watching, I love you. But just staff in general as a whole thing, it's a lot. I mean, when you've got 20 people, you've got 20 different individuals who have whatever going on in their lives. Might be going through a breakup, or might be going through a new relationship, or the stats around mental health and depression. It's 1 in 6 people. So in that team, you've got at least 3 people who are probably battling with their mental health in some way, shape, or form. So trying to keep a healthy ecosystem of humans, to me, has been the biggest challenge, but also now the thing that I find most rewarding and enjoyable about my role. So that's definitely the part that I'm sort of stepping into more. I'm stepping more out of the brewing side of things and more into I don't even have a good word for it.
All the other bits and pieces.
People and culture and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's really what actually really interests me these days.
Yeah, Trace and I are probably fairly similar. We're pretty connected with all our staff, and I think it's really important that when you have a team, so you've got to you've got to be prepared to give time to everyone who wants your time, and I think that's it's 99.9% really good and 0.001% not so good sometimes. But that's the part of running the business which is good and bad. I guess we mentioned earlier that our industry has changed a hell of a lot in 10 years. And it's interesting when you talk to people in the industry, how they see the industry progressing. Have you got any thoughts on whether you think our industry is going forward, or are we, do we need something to really give us a help along? How do you see our industry at the moment compared to maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting one, especially now given the COVID overlay that we wouldn't have had sort of 3 months ago. There's definitely a part that makes me wonder when the kind of the growth in breweries is going to stop, and how much how many breweries we can support, and what that really looks like. So that one is kind of always interesting to me, and I don't have an answer for it, but I feel like we've got to be getting close. I feel like it just can't be that much more room for people coming in. But bloody hell, I said that 10 years ago. so maybe I'm not so reliable with that stuff.
No, I tend to agree as well. We have, I think the UK has more breweries per capita than Australia, but Australia now is it's either second or third, I think, in most breweries per capita, which pretty crazy sort of scenario, really, when you start to think about 8,000 breweries in the US, and Australia's now got more breweries than the US per capita. And it's happened really in a really quick, short space of time.
Yeah,
and I
right.
think that's probably what prompted the question, is that we haven't had time to absorb it and step along slowly. It's all happened really quickly in Australia, and it'd be really interesting to see, how far we can go and how many more breweries are there to open. I guess it all comes down to more people getting into craft beer. And I suppose one of the good things we've seen is a lot of people are trying new beers at the moment from bottle shops, certainly higher alcohol ones. So our higher alcohol ones have certainly been had a big uplift in sales, which is really interesting. That's what seems like the feedback we're getting from the retailers. Are you guys, what are you seeing with your range of beers?
Yeah, look, definitely. There's a growth in the in the limited release kind of thing, which is always an interesting thing, and it's interesting conversation in itself. But so seems like there is a really well established, strong market for the consumer who wants to walk in, buy whatever's new in the last 2 weeks, have them once, try them, and then move on. So it seems like that consumer is really growing, and it's you see it everywhere, right? You can't. I scrolled down one of the might have been Beer Umbrella new release page, and it just kept going. I got the page, I was like, oh wow, I will never see half of these beers, more than half of them. So yeah, I think there's a really strong part of the market that wasn't there 3 years ago, maybe. So there's some real strong growth in that. And I guess probably going back to what you were saying before, I feel like the growth of breweries is outstripping the growth of the consumer at the moment. So I just think the market share is not growing at the same rate as the number of breweries we're getting in. So we're all just sharing a smaller and smaller piece of the pie to an extent. So but no, I think limited releases and fun stuff is definitely an area that we are pursuing more. So.
And what particular, is there a particular type of beer at the moment that you're getting into a bit more than maybe you would have, or?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Look, not really. Whatever's good. I mean, I've always been a sour. Always been into sours, so any of that stuff always interests me. It's probably the first, if I walk into a bar and there is an option to that, that's probably the first port of call for me. I have been enjoying all of the hazy stuff. Always like anything Belgian, but you can't buy any of that. So because no one here makes it, because no one here drinks it. But yeah, whenever I can get anything legit Belgian, I had a delightful Cantillon that someone had brought me back from Belgium on the weekend. That was
Delish.
Delish. Yeah, that's probably where I'm at.
Awesome. Well, Ryan's put up a question. Where do you see Two Birds in 5 to 10 years? Maybe an interstate venue, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally. I love the idea of that. I think potentially, so Danny, my business partner's in Perth, so there's always potential for something like that. You know, potentially Sydney or something like that. But yeah, no, look, I love the idea of an interstate venue. I think that would be a really fun thing to play with. And yeah, look, probably if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said taking over the world, but my aspirations are much smaller than that these days. And yeah, look, my main hope for Two Birds would be part of the craft brewing community with a happy, healthy team of staff selling good beer that we're proud of.
Yeah, well, you're obviously doing all that. So, it's
more of that.
Do you find there's a responsibility that comes with being a national brand?
Yeah, look, I do, but I think I'm not entirely sure what respect you're talking about. I think we all have a responsibility to each other in this industry, really. I think I've spoken about it at different points, but people lump us all in together, right? Craft beer, whatever that word might be in the public, people look at us all as being the same. So if I put out a crap beer, that can have an impact on you. It's going to have an impact on, grain fed. It can have an impact on mountain goat, whatever. Like, people see us as all the same. So we are all interrelated, and we do have an obligation to each other to make sure that we are, standing up to that and all doing our part to make sure that we're not having any adverse effects on the rest of the industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair call. And quality is certainly high on everyone's list. You guys invest in quality. Like, when I say invest, you put time and effort into quality, no doubt. Your beer's always pretty consistent around the place. Just about a cracker summer ale. It was packaged not that long ago, so might package that. Like qualities, it's a big part. You always have something going on in the way of quality in the brewery.
Yeah, look, and it's an easy thing it's an easy word to bandy about, but yeah, we do try to walk that talk. So we do have regular sensory panels where we're trying the beers that are coming out, making adjustments to the recipe, trying to just keep the continuous improvement happening. And yeah, just keeping an eye on that. It's so easy to take you. I don't know. You probably understand it as, and you might be above this now, but like, it's the easiest thing to drop off. When you get busy, the first thing you lose is sensory panels. People are just like, no, I don't have time to do that right now. I'm just, and they can disappear. And I reckon we've restarted sensory in our brewery about 7 times over the journey, and I can tell drinking the beers at the times that we're doing sensory regularly, and then I can tell when we're not, because it's so evident in the finished product to me, because I obviously know them like the back of my hand. But yeah, I think it's the biggest payoff you could ever hope for the amount of energy you can put into it, and for the amount of positive outcome that you get. I think it's honestly one of the most important things that we can do in our business anyway.
Yeah, no, it's fair call. And I think most breweries out there, if they don't have a sensory program, certainly worthwhile getting one on board. And you learn a lot about your process as much as tasting your beers and seeing that they're up to speed, I think is one of the big advantages from doing that. Jake says hi from WA. What do you think is going to be the next beer craze?
Oh, Jesus. I'm terrible at this because I literally thought that the hazy thing was going to go away after about a month. I was like, surely no one wants to drink these things. Surely they just look like.
I was the same.
I'm going to sound like a very old school person here, which I effectively am. But I was like, surely no one wants to drink this muck. It's just like tank bottoms and it's a disgrace. Surely no one's going to drink these things. And here we are now, however many years later, and I'm making plenty of them. So I don't know. I'm honestly terrible with these things. And I think more and more these days as well, I look at the trends, the cereal things and the whatever else. So I feel ill-equipped to talk about what the next big trend might be. But if anyone gets inside, just whisper in my ear and let me know.
Maybe sour hazies.
Sour hazies. Well, isn't that already happening? All of this, it's always the things that come together. I thought brewed IPA would have a little bit more longevity than it did, but that obviously did its thing and then went away. So I imagine it will be something that none of us have ever even thought of, and it'll just be here before we know it. And
Speaking of brewed IPAs, I share that. I thought brewed IPAs were going to be a thing, and until I went to the brewery that founded Brewed IPA, the Social Kitchen in San Francisco, and when we walked in there, they didn't even have one on tap. So I figured then they're not going to be a thing. So
if these guys haven't got one, then there's no way in hell this is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
I thought it had enough. I thought it had enough interest, and I thought it was one of those ones that sat quite adjacent to some other things that I thought would be quite big. So. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I guess there's another product that's out there at the moment in the market, which is now starting to become a little bit more available now in Australia. It's fairly big in the US. A few breweries in Australia have just put out some, and it's seltzer. Not sure where I sit with seltzer. Probably not I'm probably not over the fence yet. I'm not on the fence. I'm sort of on the off the fence side. I'll need a step and ladder to get onto the fence, I think. But there's certainly different ways you can look at seltzer, and there's different products that you can come up with to, maybe create a similar experience to a seltzer. Jane, you've had a go at one. Do you want to talk us through what you've done and how you put that together?
For sure. So I'm going to preface all of this by saying I haven't drunk any of the hallmark US seltzers at all. I just did some reading and kind of understood what the process was. And obviously there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but one of the really common ways is get some sugar, add some water to it, ferment it, add some flavoring, coloring, and then send it on out the door, and that's kind of that. So personally, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a mixologist. I'm a brewer. So I wanted to bring that brewing angle to what I was doing. So we did decide to use malt, hops, run it through the brew house. A lot of people do carbon filtration, which will remove a lot of the colour. I also didn't want to do that. I wanted this to be kind of, we're calling it a brewed alcoholic soda. So not running with the term seltzer necessarily. It's seltzer adjacent maybe. So somewhere between beer and seltzer. And then some natural flavouring and some natural colouring. So we've got watermelon to start off with. Chirpy.
I did try to get one, actually. I couldn't find one in Canberra, so I was going to do a share a tasting with you, but didn't quite make that happen.
We literally ran these off. These are just samples, so it doesn't exist in a pack yet, but we're working on it. So what was I trying to say? Yeah, so I just wanted to do something that was much truer to who we are and what we do. And I just didn't want to throw a few things together and then put that in a pack. So brewed alcoholic soda is my way of looking at it. It'll be low gluten, not gluten free, but yeah, I think the hallmarks of it is potentially it's kind of more of a lifestyle consumer who is looking for something that is potentially lower in alcohol, has lower carbs, low calories, that kind of stuff. So still kind of pitching it into that, but coming at it from a place that we are comfortable with and understand.
We when we launched obviously Crankshaft and Barley Griffin in cans first, and then went out to our drafters, our loyal members, and asked them what they wanted next. And funnily enough, it was a pretty well a dead heat between Big and Hoppy and our ginger beer. And our ginger beer at the time was made with sorghum and ginger, obviously, and we could call it gluten friendly, so we called it GFG, gluten friendly ginger beer. And we thought that the gluten-friendly beers would be something, but we're not actually allowed to use gluten-friendly because it's too close to gluten-free, and you can't call something gluten-free if you've brewed it.
Yes.
So, do you think gluten-free beers, or there's obviously a couple of breweries now specialising in that, but do you see a bit of an uptake for that? And when we had an opportunity to use this gluten-free barley, actually from the CSIRO, and had a bit of a play with that, but ultimately we couldn't call the beer we made gluten-free, which seems crazy. But I think the market is definitely calling out for something there. Do you think?
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. I think as the number of people who have these kind of intolerances grows, there's definitely a market for it. And there's people who just also self-report as feeling better when they don't have gluten, even if they don't have the actual allergy. So it's not going anywhere, that's for sure. And O'Brien's had some crazy growth in the last quarter. So I think there's definitely something to it. So I think having a product that can fill that is quite helpful. And it's the same thing, right? It's kind of all about a range. You want to have different things, different offerings for different parts of the market, and being able to service, okay, cool, if you want that, I've got this. If you want that, I've got this. And being able to have just a wide range of products that you can hopefully slot into whatever requirement a pub or a retailer or whatever might have.
I've got a question for David up there. Two Birds Golden Ale was a pioneer and one of the best beers in that category. Is there a future for Golden Ales?
Well, look, it's a really hard one. I mean, I guess where we saw it was that, we just weren't seeing the growth in it. It was just not going, I guess, where we wanted it to. So you see it. It's a retracting category, right? So it's shrinking. I don't know. You tell me. If people are going to buy it, then we'll make it. But
but people are going to buy it, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. And that was probably one of the hard things with Golden is we have never had. That was the most likes we've ever had on a post was when we announced that Golden was going, and it was, when I say likes, it was uproar and gnashing of teeth and sadness and all of that kind of stuff. Oh crap! Sorry, excuse me.
Jane, we've had a few questions about this as well, and you've been asked this a number of times, but we'll cover this off as well. What advice do you have for women wanting to succeed in the craft beer industry, and how can the industry improve to be more inclusive?
In terms of the industry being more inclusive, I feel like that's a thing that exists. I feel like I can't see that many barriers to entry for females in the industry. Obviously, I'm happy to be wrong on that and happy to be called out on that. But I think the playing field is so much more level than it ever has been. And look, my only piece of advice would probably be the same for everybody: is know what you're getting into, understand what your strengths are, understand what you want to do, and do everything in your power to be able to put that forward to somebody and get your way in the door. Yeah, look, I mean, I am potentially, distanced from a lot of that sort of stuff, in that I don't have any of that kind of energy in my company, in my circles, anything like that. So I don't experience any of that kind of thing at all. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, and I really hope it doesn't. And
Yeah, I'll second that. I mean, I think I've done a fair bit of judging, we've done a fair bit of judging around the world, and certainly what I've noticed is that most females have the best palates out of us. Tracy always picks up things that I don't pick up in beers, and I think I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just the makeup. I'm not sure. Don't know how to answer that one. But I do know that for me, women pick up flavours in beers that a lot of blokes can't. I'm not sure why that is, but I know that whenever I've judged with women before, they're always, totally rock solid judges. We need to get more women judging beer, because some of the comments I get back on my score sheets, and I reckon I recognise the handwriting a lot of the time. So, and I know they're not ladies, but yeah. So that's something we maybe need to look at. Speaking of overseas and judging, we'd usually off on a few trips. We've missed a fair few, I guess, this year so far. And looks like we've got some interesting decisions to make coming up, whether we get involved in the Australian International Beer Awards, or even BrewCon's coming up not too far away, and up in Queensland if they open the borders. I personally have been trying to relive a lot of those trips that I've been on before over probably the last 12 years by going through my millions of photos and trying to only save the really good ones, and the ones that were blurry I've sort of deleted. Jane, have you been thinking about some of those trips and are missing those trips?
Definitely. Yeah, no, I've been missing them. I like the idea of looking back through the photos. I think that would be quite cathartic, I reckon. I haven't been doing a hell of a lot. I'm really missing the camaraderie and all that kind of stuff. So, there's been a few occasions, Rich, we've had some Zoom beers at times when we were meant to be in Maryland, San Antonio, and whatever else. So, I definitely miss hanging out with my mates and drinking beer and, all around the world and getting to do that sort of stuff. And it does look like most of those trips will be off for the year. So I'll miss the US, Japan, Perth. Well, who knows what else. But it's a shame. And the thing I was saying to Rich actually before we started chatting, that the thing that I'm most worried about is you lose contact with your palate a little bit, or not lose contact, but what judging does is it so finely tunes your palate, and it puts you in this great zone. And it also, for me, is a great source of inspiration as well. Like, I get so much out of the beers that I try and judging, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was awesome. I want to go home and try one of those. That was cool. That thing came across really well. I really like that hop character, or whatever. So there's so much that comes out of it that you just can't really replicate it any other way, other than drinking a whole lot of beers. But when are you ever going to get exposed to 140 beers over 2 days, and then get to sit at a champion table with all of these just beautifully brewed, fantastic, amazing kind of things? Like, it's really rare, and it's one of my favorite things. So yes, feeling a little bit sore-hearted at the moment from missing all of that stuff.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's certainly when you go away and you get to taste all these different beers, certainly from obviously you're not judging your own beers, so you're judging other people's beers, and they really give you heaps of stimulation to, come back to your brewery and check all your beers and make sure they're the best they can be, but give you heaps of ideas for new beers. And I think that's the exciting thing being a brewery, is that you can always come up with a new beer and come up with something that's going to put a smile on someone's face. Justin's got a question up there. How do you think the community can be encouraged to sample more of the staple beers, or is the compromise core versus seasonal? Pretty good question, Justin. We struggle with that as well, and we've got a core range that's probably too big. But which one do we lose? It's a hard decision. We're going to annoy someone if we take one out. So,
how many do your core range, Rich?
What do we got in our core range? 7, I think. Yeah, so it's a fair few. What do we do with that? I don't know. I don't know the answer. We're sort of up and down with it. But we've got a couple of little side arms that, the Bending Spoke series, where we put out some different beers. And that's sort of where we get to play around a little bit. I mean, my focus lately has been trying to recreate some beer styles that people wouldn't likely taste all that often, and make them a bit more approachable, certainly in flavour, but also when you're making a beer more approachable in flavour, it generally means that you're going to be able to lower the price of that, and someone's going to be able to look at that on a shelf and go, oh, you know what, I might buy that for $24 a 4-pack instead of 34 or something like that. So have you thought about recreating some of those styles you talked about earlier, maybe some of those Belgian styles, but bringing them in at a place where they're going to be good sellers?
Yeah, look, you effectively hit the nail on the head, right? That's the way you've got to do it. In order to encourage trial, you potentially have to go in at a lower margin and a lower price to be able to get that to work. But I don't know how to. I find the whole kind of dragging people back, not dragging, but using something like limiteds or seasonals to be able to get people back into your ongoing range. And I just don't know. I like to think it works, but I just don't know how compatible that is, and whether or not the person who's shopping your limiteds is really just shopping those things. And that's probably what I believe. I believe that those people who are buying limited releases are buying all of those, and then they've got a 6-pack or whatever of their go-to. And that might be, your beer, or it might be Stone and Wood, or it might be Bolter XPA or whatever else. So yeah, it's a matter of making yourself that one bulk purchase that person makes. And I've just done a unit at uni on consumer psychology, and I still don't understand how people's brains work. So I'm always taking recommendations on what that actually looks like.
Stuart's got a question up there. Love a smooth stout. Are you guys making a stout for winter at the moment? There we go. Two Birds Stout.
All right. So just
talk us through it.
Literally, as you asked me, I was just looking at it going, I'm going to crack that now. So this is our next limited release out tomorrow. So this is pre-release stuff. So I don't know if that's the right way around or the wrong way around, but Finnish word, kalsarikannet, means to, I'll read it straight for you, the feeling of drinking at home in your underwear with no intention of going out. So we've got 2 beers. We've got a hazy pale, which is the one I just drank before. Oh, shit, terrible. Hazy pale, and then a vanilla and cacao stout. So a little bit of a winter vibe, something else a little bit sunny. And yeah, just something I wanted to do. Came across this word and I was like, oh my God, that's a great name for a beer, because that's what we've all been doing, and you guys don't have to do that so much anymore, but we still do here in Vic. So but yeah.
That's beautiful. Nice and black.
Nice and black. So
there you go, Stuart. Get into a bottle shop near you and seek out that beautiful, smooth stout from Two Birds. Look, Jane, thanks very much for coming and having a chat.
Pleasure.
It's been great, and Yeah, it's really good to talk with people who love what they do and love what they, love the beer that they make. And, I think our industry, we're lucky to be in this industry. I never take it for granted. No, Jane doesn't. It's great to be able to go to work every day and love what you do. So, yeah, cheers to Jane.
Mate,
And
thanks for
next
having me
week
on.
on Bent Brewers Live, we're going to go to South Australia. We've got fifth generation chief brewer, managing director, Dr. Tim Cooper from Cooper's Brewery on the show. So please tune in next week. Promises to be another cracker. So thanks to everyone who tuned in tonight. Don't forget to look out for those merch packs in the mail, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers.